My journey through love and heartache. I am a 40-year-old woman, married to my husband, who is 39. We got married when we were both quite young, barely in our early 20s, and for nearly 18 years, we have been building our lives together. We've faced many challenges, but we've also enjoyed countless happy moments. And through it all, our commitment to each other has remained strong. Our love story isn't perfect, but it's uniquely ours. Together, we have two wonderful children, a daughter who is now 19 and a son who is 18. They have recently moved out to pursue their own dreams and adventures. Watching them grow into their own people fills us with immense pride, but it also leaves a void in our home. The house that was once lively with their laughter and energy now feels quieter and emptier. We miss those moments when they were kids and needed us, and while we love seeing them flourish, it's hard not to feel a bit lonely without them around. In February of this year, my life took an unexpected turn when I lost my job. It was a difficult time for me. I had dedicated myself to my career and had developed a strong sense of identity tied to my work. My job was not just a source of income, it was a big part of who I was. Losing it felt like losing a piece of myself. I went through many emotions: shock, sadness, and even a bit of anger. After several weeks of searching and countless applications, I finally secured a new job in August. But the transition wasn't easy. During the months when I was unemployed, my husband had to step up at his job. He worked harder than ever to ensure his position was secure, especially during such uncertain times. This added pressure at work understandably put a strain on our relationship. He became more focused on his job and less available emotionally, which left me feeling isolated and alone. I started to feel like I was drifting away from him, and I missed the deep connection we once shared. As I began my new job, I was eager to make a good impression and adapt to my new environment. I wanted to show my new colleagues that I was capable and ready to contribute. However, during this adjustment period, something unexpected happened. I developed a crush on a younger guy at work. He was 25 years old, full of energy, and seemed to embody the excitement I was missing in my own life. I found myself drawn to him in a way I hadn't felt in years. It's hard to explain, but there was something exhilarating about my feelings for him. Even though there was nothing inherently wrong with my marriage, I found myself captivated by this new, thrilling experience. It was as if he represented a spark of youth and adventure that I thought I had lost. I started looking forward to seeing him at work, and our casual conversations felt like a breath of fresh air in my otherwise routine life. Unfortunately, this newfound excitement came at a cost. As I began to focus more on my feelings for this younger man, I started feeling insecure about myself and my place in my marriage. I felt restless and unhappy, though I couldn't quite pinpoint why. I began to argue with my husband over the smallest things, often blaming him for issues that had nothing to do with him. The emotions swirling inside me led me to believe that my husband was to blame for my discontent. As COVID restrictions in our country eased in late August, I found myself going out more often with friends. This newfound freedom felt liberating, but it also led me to flirt more openly with the younger guy at work. My heart raced every time I caught his eye, and I started feeling like a teenager again. By early September, I was in a mindset that sought to shake things up, and I suggested to my husband the idea of an open marriage. I explained that we had spent so long focusing on the kids that it was time for us to enjoy our lives again. I thought this could be a way for both of us to explore new experiences and regain some of the excitement we had lost over the years. However, my husband was completely against the idea. He viewed marriage as a sacred bond between two people and was firm in his beliefs about what our relationship should look like. I felt frustrated and thought he was holding me back from living my life to the fullest. In my mind, I believed he needed to change with the times and embrace a lifestyle where fun and excitement were possible. I tried to explain my feelings and my desire for something different, but despite my attempts to convince him, he remained steadfast in his refusal. It felt like we were worlds apart, and I was desperate to be understood. In a moment of desperation, I resorted to manipulation, suggesting that if he didn't agree to an open marriage, I would consider divorce. I knew this was a low blow, but I felt trapped and wanted him to understand how serious I was about wanting change. This threat seemed to shake him, and after much back and forth, he finally agreed to give it a try. I felt a rush of relief and excitement at his agreement, thinking that this was the beginning of a new chapter for us. At first, I engaged in a few flings with the younger guy, enjoying the thrill of those encounters. It was intoxicating to feel desired and to experience the excitement of new relationships. I felt a rush of emotions that I hadn't experienced in years. Meanwhile, my husband also started dating, but he never went as far as to sleep with anyone. I thought this arrangement would satisfy my desires, but soon I began to realize that my encounters with other men left me feeling unfulfilled. I missed the intimacy and emotional connection that my husband provided. I recognized that while I had sought excitement outside our marriage, I had neglected the depth of love and care my husband had always shown me. The emotional connection we had was something I couldn't find with anyone else. As I reconnected with my husband physically, I began to feel great again. We were still seeing other people, but I was starting to realize how special our bond truly was. However, things took a turn when my husband began to date a high school friend of his. After several weeks of seeing each other, I found myself consumed with jealousy. I had opened the door to new experiences, but now I was faced with the consequences of my choices. Watching him spend time with someone else was torturous for me. The very idea that he was building a connection with another woman was overwhelming, and it made me question everything I had pushed for. In mid-November, I approached my husband again and suggested that we close our marriage and return to being monogamous. I had hoped that he would understand my feelings and agree to stop seeing others, but he was resolute in his decision not to end things with his friend. His refusal led to intense arguments and emotional turmoil between us. I felt trapped in a situation I had created, and I was struggling to deal with the consequences of my actions. Spending nights alone in our marital home while he was with another woman was incredibly painful. I lay in bed, feeling the weight of loneliness and despair. I had wanted excitement, but what I felt now was emptiness. The very connection I had sought to explore had turned into a source of pain and regret. I missed my husband, and I missed the love we had built together over the years. The thrill of flirting and new experiences paled in comparison to the deep, meaningful bond we once shared. As I reflected on my choices, I realized that I needed to confront my feelings honestly. I had pursued excitement without fully considering the impact on my marriage. I had believed that opening our relationship would bring us closer, but instead, it had driven a wedge between us. I wanted to find a way back to the love and connection that had once defined our relationship. In the following weeks, I made a concerted effort to reconnect with my husband. I wanted to show him that I valued our relationship and the life we had built together. I began to focus on the little things: cooking his favorite meals, spending quality time together, and being open about my feelings. I wanted him to know that I was serious about wanting to close our marriage and recommit to each other fully. Eventually, I gathered the courage to have an honest conversation with him. I shared my feelings of regret and acknowledged the mistakes I had made. I expressed my desire to rebuild our relationship and focus on the love we had for each other. I wanted to move forward, leaving the past behind us. To my relief, my husband was receptive to my feelings. He shared his own struggles during this time and how he had also felt lost in our relationship. We talked about our love, our family, and the life we wanted to create together moving forward. It was a challenging conversation, but it felt necessary to heal the rift that had formed between us. Over time, we started to rebuild our connection. We made a commitment to prioritize our marriage and focus on each other once again. The journey wasn't easy, but we learned to communicate better and support each other through the ups and downs. We realized that while we had faced challenges, our love was still strong, and we were willing to fight for it. In the end, I learned that seeking excitement outside our marriage wasn't the answer to my feelings of restlessness. True fulfillment came from nurturing the bond I already had with my husband. I also learned the importance of open and honest communication in a relationship. By facing my feelings and being willing to change, I was able to rediscover the love that had always been there. As we move forward together, I am grateful for the lessons we've learned and the strength we've found in our relationship. We may not have a perfect love story, but it is our story, filled with growth, love, and renewed commitment. The emotional pain I felt became unbearable, and on November 28th, I reached a breaking point. I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of despair and heartache. It felt as if my heart was being crushed under the weight of emotional trauma, and I could see no way out. In a moment of darkness, I attempted to take my own life, believing that I could no longer handle the suffering that had consumed me for so long. Fortunately, my husband found me just in time. He rushed me to the hospital, where I received the help I desperately needed. It was a terrifying experience, but it also opened my eyes. This moment changed my husband. He realized just how serious things had become between us. After that day, he agreed to close our marriage once again, hoping to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. As I sat in the hospital, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. Perhaps we could recover from this dark phase in our lives. However, I soon discovered that the shadows of the past were not so easily lifted. My husband still had lingering feelings for the other woman, the one who had contributed to our struggles. The realization hit me hard when he casually mentioned buying her a birthday gift and wanting to visit her to deliver it. A mix of anger and betrayal washed over me. Yet, I reluctantly agreed to go with him, hoping that facing this situation head-on would help us move forward. When we arrived at her house, I was struck by how big and beautiful it was. The sight filled me with an overwhelming sense of insecurity. I felt small and insignificant compared to the life she appeared to have. She opened the door with a smile, accepted the gift, and hugged my husband right in front of me. At that moment, anger flared inside me like a wildfire, and I wanted to leave immediately. How could he betray me like this, even in front of her? She invited us in for drinks, but I refused, and we returned home in silence. That night was particularly painful. During an intimate moment, something shocking happened. As my husband was about to climax, he accidentally said her name. My heart sank. I felt humiliated and betrayed. It was as if he was still thinking about her during our most private time together. Though he quickly apologized and claimed he was confused about his feelings, I couldn't shake the deep sense of hurt that washed over me. It felt as though the wounds I thought were healing were opened again, deeper than before. He ended up sleeping on the couch that night, leaving me to grapple with my emotions alone. The next morning, my husband approached me with a heavy heart. He told me he couldn't continue living this way, filled with confusion and pain. He needed space and planned to move out for a few days to clear his mind. I agreed reluctantly, feeling as though I had no choice in the matter. Later that afternoon, as I sat in our quiet home, A friend sent me a photo of my husband at the other woman's house. She lived nearby, and my heart sank further into despair. I called him, and when he answered, I could hear the calm in his voice, which only deepened my anxiety. He told me that since we were on a break, he was free to see other people. In that moment, I felt utterly devastated and lost. 5 hours later, I was a wreck. I realized that the emotional turmoil I had created was destroying our relationship. I knew I had already caused significant damage to our marriage, but I was determined to do everything I could to fix it. I shared my story here because I needed advice. I couldn't talk to our children about what was happening. I didn't want to burden them with our problems. I finally understood just how much my husband loved me unconditionally, and I was terrified of throwing away the 20 years we had built together. Seeking help for a broken marriage in my desperation, I searched for answers, hoping to find a way to restore our marriage. I wanted to understand how to make my husband change his mind about leaving. My heart ached with the thought of being without him. It felt unbearable to think that I might lose him forever. I knew I had to confront my own mistakes and acknowledge that my actions had consequences. During this painful time, I began to realize that I needed to reflect on what had happened between us. I started writing down my feelings, trying to untangle the emotions that clouded my judgment. I thought about the foundation of our relationship, the love, laughter, and shared dreams we had built over the years. I remembered the beautiful moments we had together, the challenges we had overcome, and the support we had provided each other during difficult times. As I wrote, I recognized that my actions stemmed from insecurity. Losing my job had shaken my sense of self-worth, and in an effort to cope, I had sought validation from someone outside our marriage. I had allowed my feelings for the younger guy to overshadow the love I had for my husband. This realization hit me hard. I had betrayed the person who had always been there for me, supporting me through thick and thin. To begin the healing process, I knew I had to communicate openly with my husband. I needed to express my feelings honestly and apologize for my behavior. I wanted him to understand that my actions were not a reflection of my love for him, but rather a misguided attempt to find happiness. I decided to reach out to him, hoping for a chance to have an open and honest conversation. When we finally spoke, I laid everything bare. I admitted my insecurities and the reasons behind my actions. I expressed my regret for suggesting an open marriage and for the pain it had caused him. I wanted him to know that my love for him had never wavered. I had just lost my way in the chaos of my emotions. To my relief, my husband listened. He shared his feelings of hurt and betrayal, but he also admitted that he still cared for me. We both realized that we had made mistakes, but we had also learned valuable lessons about ourselves and our relationship. We began to discuss what we needed from each other moving forward. We talked about our needs, our desires, and how we could rebuild the trust that had been broken. I expressed my desire to focus on our marriage and my commitment to being a better partner. I promised to prioritize our relationship and work on my insecurities. My husband shared his feelings of confusion and frustration, but also his willingness to give our marriage another chance. Together, we agreed to take things slowly. We would start by spending more quality time together, doing activities we both enjoyed. We planned regular date nights, hoping to reconnect and rediscover the love that had been overshadowed by pain. I knew we had a long road ahead, but I was committed to putting in the effort to heal and rebuild what had been broken. In the days that followed, I worked on myself. I sought therapy to help me navigate my emotions and understand the root causes of my insecurities. I learned valuable coping strategies and began to rebuild my self-esteem. I also focused on showing my husband love and appreciation, reminding him how much he meant to me. As we spent more time together, I could feel the tensions slowly easing. We laughed more and started to communicate openly about our feelings. I noticed my husband becoming more engaged and present, and it filled me with hope. We began to create new memories while cherishing the old ones that brought us together in the first place. Gradually, we rebuilt the trust that had been shattered. We learned to be vulnerable with each other, sharing our fears, dreams, and insecurities. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt, but we persevered. The love we had for each other began to shine through the darkness, illuminating a path toward healing and reconciliation. As the weeks passed, I felt a renewed sense of hope. My husband and I were learning to navigate our emotions together, and I could see the love in his eyes returning. We discussed our future, dreaming of the life we wanted to build together. I realized how precious our time together was and how important it was to cherish every moment. While we knew the road to healing was ongoing, we were committed to each other and our marriage. I understood that we both had work to do, but we were ready to face it together. Our love was stronger than the challenges we had faced, and together we could overcome anything. In the end, I was grateful for the experience, as painful as it was. It taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of communication in a relationship. I learned that love can withstand even the toughest trials, as long as both partners are willing to put in the effort and embrace vulnerability. As I reflect on our journey, I feel a profound sense of gratitude for my husband and the love we share. Our story is a testament to the power of forgiveness and the strength of our bond. I am hopeful for the future, knowing that as long as we continue to support each other, our love will flourish. If you find yourself in a similar situation, remember that healing takes time and effort. Open communication is vital, and seeking help can make a world of difference. Believe in the power of love and never lose hope.